Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hey everyone, welcome back to Right on Track. Joining me on the show today is two guests actually. I'm so excited to have a chat with. Please welcome SJ and Callum from Morganway. Hello guys.
Hey.
Hey.
How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. It's an exciting time for us. In the middle of getting ready for the album, to drop at the end of the month. So it's all go, go, go.
Yes, love it. And we will be discussing your album during our chat. But first, I would love for each of you to share a little about yourselves and how you first got into songwriting and music.
Weirdly, like I've always been into writing. Firstly, I think I remember my primary school teacher telling me that basically she thought, she really liked my writing, just short stories and stuff. So that would have been like, I don't know, probably when I was about 7 or 8, just writing, little fun stories, really. And so that was kind of where I first got into, I think, creative stuff was, I think, writing. And for a while, I kind of imagined writing stories as an adult. And then I kind of got into film and then music sort of at our high school. A lot of people were sort of in bands and it was kind of quite, so when I say casual, I mean, I wasn't sort of hell bent on being a songwriter or anything. It was more like, writing was my interest. And then I kind of started playing bass, started playing a bit of guitar, and gradually just writing became the songwriting became that new way of expression. And I think I really like the fact that you know, songwriting as an art form, or write, songs themselves as art forms kind of cover. You can have a film within 3 minutes, really, and also a very, or you can dance, or you can. There's so many experiences, immediate experiences you get through a song, and I think maybe that's partly what drew me in. Plus, just playing in bands was fun, really.
I love that so much, and I feel like a lot of creative people have some kind of childhood experience that first introduces them to some kind of creative art. And like you, I love storytelling from a young age, and now I'm both a songwriter and an author as well. So I think it's really cool how you have that root as well in creative writing and short stories, and that led to you getting into songwriting with the band. So SJ, why don't you go next?
Yeah, well, for me, it's completely different, really, because music and melodies and harmonies was what I kind of began my writing journey like on, really. Because I always find like a hook or a melody line always grabs me first, and lyrics always kind of came second to me. And it's still kind of something I'm trying to like work on more now as a writer is really think about a story, um, as well as the melodies and stuff. But yeah, it was always melodies for me. I find whenever I listen to a song the first time, if it doesn't kind of connect with me on a music level, I don't tend to listen to the words. And then it's only when I've heard it, 2 or 3 times, then I really listen to the words and then I connect with the song, like, even more, and I love that. So, yeah, I think that's what's really nice about collaborating in, like, a band aspect as well, because we not only get to kind of all put our own musical stamp on songs we do together, but, Cal always has lyric insights, and Nikki, our fiddle player, also has like nice lyric insights to add too. So we all kind of like work on the storyline together, and then it's like not just one person's perspective on a song. It's kind of becomes a whole group thing, and it means different things to different people in the band and like outside of it as well. And it's just such a cool thing about being creative in general, isn't it?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I love how you are so music driven. I'm also a classical pianist too, and so growing up, I was always playing classical music. I still do now. And I think because of that as well, when I listen to any kind of song, the melody is one of the first things that I zero in on just because of my music background too. So I think it's really cool I have something in common with both of you. And just to give a little shout out to your fabulous band members who are not here, can you share their names and what they bring to the band?
Well, SJ obviously mentioned Nikki there, who is our violin player. Also makes violins as well, which is pretty cool. And I should have mentioned earlier, actually, when I was talking about first getting into kind of songwriting and music. I have a twin brother who is in the band, funnily enough, Kieran Morgan, who plays guitar, and and so we kind of grew up obviously together. We were born together, so it kind of goes without saying. But you know, we were yeah, we kind of grew up and again, like as SJ mentioned really beautifully earlier about the fact that every band member has a slightly different perspective when it comes to music, when it comes to collaboration, when it comes to anything really. And I think Kieran and I both had quite different um, kind of musical. I mean, Kieran is a very amazing guitarist. I don't mean to sound self-deprecating, but I'm probably the least musical person in the band in some ways, like because I kind of came at it from a slightly different way. And no bass player jokes because the bass is a deceptively hard instrument. but uh, but yeah, and then we have who else do we have? I'm getting a bit lost. We
So, yeah, just to add to that, Kieran is also my husband. So we always get the Fleetwood Mac joke because it's like not only twin brothers in the band, but also a husband
That's
wife.
so fun.
Someone actually
But
said that. They said, "I don't think I can think of." I mean, there's brothers in bands, there's husbands and wives in band. I can't think of. You've got that, the full package.
yeah, so our other band members are Ed Bullinger on drums, who we nicknamed Steady Eddie because he keeps us steady, and Matt Brocklehurst on keys, who is also known as Brockle Toast. That's his DJ name, and he's like a music encyclopedia in a human form.
I think he listens to is it 70 albums a week or something? It's nuts. It's overwhelming. Like
Yeah.
he puts music on every single second of the day, and sometimes like we'll be on the way back from a gig, and it'll be late at night in the van, and Matt will already have the soundtrack going. And I was talked to. It was sometimes like some of us are like, oh, maybe just the sound of silence. But cheeky Simon and Garfunkel reference, I guess.
That's so funny. So, looking back, what actually made all of you come together and start the band?
Oof.
Wow, that is a well. So in a nutshell, because every band has a complex history, I think. But in a nutshell, me and my brother have pretty much always played in bands together, and we, but actually, to be fair, SJ and Kieran have also played in bands together from a long time as well. So it kind of was this natural sort of joining of things. It kind of came through slightly forced circumstance because the band that originally began as Morganway had a slightly different lineup. It was me, my brother, and Matt, who we mentioned earlier, who plays keyboard. And we had two other members in the band as well, Eve and Simon. And sort of as we were on sort of putting together our first album, things just as life happens, things didn't quite work out, and both Simon and Eve ended up leaving. And it was kind of at this perfect kind of crossroads because then it was sort of like, well, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
SJ is an amazing singer, and yeah,
Yeah, so at the time, around that time that Cal's speaking about, I was in a band called SJ and the Flying Pigs with Kieran and Nikki, our fiddle player, and it kind of just made sense to join forces. Um, but it was interesting at the time because this is like 2018, I think it was, and the old Morgan Way lineup had already basically recorded the first album. Um, and then obviously the lineup changed before that album came out, and it made sense for us to add our parts. But because the album was already recorded, it was like, I don't know how else to explain it but just saying like it was like having a baby before getting hitched because it was like it was like we've never played together live yet, but we're gonna just record our parts of this album and then see where it goes. But, we ended up doing all right and it all worked out.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Was it an easy decision to call the band Morganway?
No, not really. The band that so the band used to be called that well, me and my brother before when we were in high school, we were in a band called the Sharps, and the Sharps had various lineups and, but we kind of as Morgan Way started to form, it kind of felt like it was time to we originally wondered about just carrying on as the Sharps. And and then we just spent, ages brainstorming different ideas of what we could possibly be. And being the egotistical maniacs that me and my brother are, we thought we had to have the name Morgan in the band. But actually, the way it came about is our grandfather, who sadly died when he was when we, because I can say we because we're twins, we were only a year old. My wife always gets a bit annoyed because not annoyed, but often I'll be talking a we in a story, and sometimes she has to sort of have a think and go, oh, he's talking about Kieran, not me, uh, because we've spent our whole lives together. And anyway, we did this. We kind of thought, well, there's our granddad who was a vicar who, as I say, died when we were only a year old. He was quite like well known in the area. He was quite sort of celebrated, and he always has had this kind of certain mystique about him because we hear so many stories about him, but because we were only a year old when he died, we don't have really any memories. Apparently, he loved us very much, but it was a very sudden death, so it was kind of obviously well, not that you can be prepared for any of it, but anyway, they named a road after him called Morgan's Way, and we decided to drop the S, and there we had Morgan Way, and it's been that way since, really.
That's such a great story. I love hearing how bands come up with their names because there's always meaning behind them.
Yeah, there probably is, isn't there? Like, I haven't thought it's not. I don't often think about band names like in that way because I was talking to someone the other day where the Beatles. Some people would argue that's not necessarily. I mean, bearing in mind our name's called Morganway, so take this with a pinch of salt. But it's not. It's like it's kind of a corny name in a way, the Beatles, isn't it? Like the pun. But obviously, they're just one of the most incredible bands ever, and we associate that. We just see the Beatles in a way. So sometimes it's like hearing the context behind it. Yeah, you kind of, I do. It's not something I often think about, but yeah, a name really. It's hard to sort of imagine because thinking of a band name is difficult. I don't know if you found like when you've played in bands and stuff like it's a
Yeah, so I'm a solo artist, so I just went with my first and middle name as my stage name.
It's a good name.
To
Why
be
not?
Michelle. Yep.
Yeah, it's lovely.
That's
Nice and
really good.
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I'm all for like the challenge of picking names though. Like this podcast, I agonized over the name forever. I host another podcast for publishing that I agonized over. I have an editing business that I agonized over the name. So I haven't named a van, but I've named things.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's tricky because it's like you kind of feel like it's gotta be that forever.
Yeah,
But
right,
obviously,
right. Yeah.
there are bands we know that have changed their name halfway through and, you know, I guess it's whatever kind of feels right and hopefully that feeling lasts.
Yeah.
And I think we're all happy as the name to be Morgan Way. A lot of people seem to think that we're Welsh because I think it's a Welsh name and yeah, we sometimes people you know introduce us as McGanway,
To be fair,
like it's Welsh.
S
Makes it cooler.
SJ does do it. You do SJ, you do a pretty convincing Welsh accent. Although obviously, bearing in mind, not necessarily Welsh people might think that, but certainly those non-Welsh amongst us, I think it's a pretty convincing one. So could always just pretend.
Tidy.
So funny. So, from each of you, I would like to hear one of your favorite career highlights so far.
I'm gonna have to go with a really cool gig that we had. Not this summer just gone, but the one before that. We played a festival called Crop Pretty Folk Festival, and it's like the biggest crowd we ever played to, and it was just one of the most amazing experiences where we were opening up the stage, and we didn't really think there was going to be that many people yet because I think it was about midday, And half of us were quite kind of delirious because we just come off like a flight the previous day from the US. So we were pretty jet lagged, and kind of floating through life already. And then suddenly, like, this, I think it was about 20,000 people were just suddenly in this field. And we were playing a massive stage as well, like way bigger than we'd ever kind of been used to at that time. And yeah, it was just one of the most amazing gigs ever. Like, we had the crowd just, like, clapping along with us and loving it, and we found so many cool fans from that show, and people still talk about that gig now, as do we. So it's like it's one of those moments that I'm just never gonna forget. It was amazing.
Tough to follow that one.
Sorry.
I would say it was probably, at the Great Estate backstage at the Great Estate Festival in Cornwall when the singer of Electric Six complimented my shoes. Um, no, I'm joking. That was great, that was great, but, I couldn't resist. Do you know, actually, I don't know if you find this, but, I do have I mean, I actually the other day we watched Spinal Tap for the first like, I say we, I had somehow gone through my life this far, having never seen Spinal Tap. Everyone else in the band has seen it, but I had never seen Spinal Tap. Bear in mind I did a film degree, that's pretty shocking, but, it was just one of those movies I hadn't seen. I was ashamed to admit it, but the band finally got me sat down and we watched Spinal Tap. But there's, like, the bit when they're, like, trying to get on stage is kinda terrifying, I find, because I have reoccurring dreams, when, like, you don't know if everything starts going wrong at the gig and they're so vivid. And the point I'm making with this is like that feeling of like, is anyone going to show up? Is it going to be a complete disaster? Like, even if like maybe all the signs are suggesting that's not going to be the case, there are tickets sold, there or whatever. There's just a bit of your brain that maybe it's just me that's a paranoid wreck, but just goes, is this just going to not happen? Or is something the imposter syndrome, maybe? I don't know. And this festival season, we did a festival called the Long Road, which is like a rising Americana festival in the UK. And it's really cool, beautiful site. Um, Unfortunately, and you always feel bad for festivals, especially in the UK, the weather was just shocking. You just don't, they put all this effort. It's a beautiful site, and the weather was just chucking it down. And I was just like, and we kind of, so we had, bear in mind, we arrived in the rain. We were opening the main stage. It's a beautiful, huge stage, but there's also, if you're on a massive stage and you've got a massive space for a crowd, but there's no one there, it just seems even more, uh, you know, it feels even more like you're playing to no one. You could be playing to 50 people and it feels like you're playing to 0. And so we did a sound check in the rain and we were on in half an hour and we just thought, there was like a man and his dog in the crowd or something. And I just thought, we're on this beautiful stage and oh my God, is it just going to be a complete washout? And we couldn't have been gone for 20 minutes, but we just for 20 minutes just got ready. And when we walked back out on stage, we had a little huddle firsthand, like, whatever, this is going to be fun. We'll just enjoy it for what it is. And it was just packed. It was really busy. There was people cheering, like people seemed to know who we were. There were people that knew our songs, and it really was just an amazing, amazing moment to wait.
It stopped raining as well, didn't it?
It did. I'd forgot about that. Well, you kind
Yeah.
of don't notice when you're playing sometimes with the rain, do you? But except at Croppedy with I Feel the Rain.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, we've got a song called "I Feel the Rain," and sometimes when
Aw.
we play that, it rains.
Oh,
It's
that's
very
so
weird.
good. Look at that. It's like some manifestation going on.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, love those highlights. And now I want to hear about your new album coming very, very soon, Kill the Silence. So, if you could share the inspiration behind the project as a whole, and then give a brief track by track sharing the inspiration behind the songs.
This is our third album, and every album you're learning from it. And we did a gig with Bell and Sebastian a few months ago, which was incredible. I don't know, do you know Bell and Sebastian, the band? They're amazing. Yeah, they're from Glasgow, but they've been doing it for a long time. And I was sort of talking to them about the process of making albums and how each time you learn, and we think we've really got it now. For the next album we'll get it right. And the singer said, his name's Stuart, said, "Oh, well, let me know how that goes." Because I think, every band is always developing. I think he was making it in a kind way, the point he was making, but, you're always learning from the process. But we felt so with this album, we were like, "Cool, we've done these first 2 albums, we're pleased with them, the stuff we learned, but what we wanna do now is really try and people keep saying that they really love us live, and so we wanted to make something rawer. We didn't want to do too many overdubs. We wanted to get in a room, play together, and try and kind of recreate that raw, honest representation of Morganway, essentially. That was the brief we set ourselves, I think, wasn't it, SJ?
Yeah, exactly, and I think, yeah, it was the first time we went into the studio to record an album, and we wanted to get it all done in that one, like, week that we had booked. Because before, it had been very scattered on the previous 2 albums of, like, we'll do a weekend here, a weekend there, and we literally just went to this studio in the Welsh Valleys. We love Wales, um, and there was, like, no signal, there were meerkats and sheep. It was, like, beautiful. Like,
Beautiful weather too.
yeah, it was just an idyllic place, and, you know, we were just there for a week, and we recorded, I think, about 15 songs live together in the room all together. In the first 3 days, we literally just, like, bashed it out. We did about, like, 3 to 4 takes of each song, sometimes less than that. And then, for the rest of the week, we did the vocals, and we did, like, gang vocal parts. We were all round one microphone. So, yeah, we really kind of got the live, like, warm feeling that we were after, and it's nice. You can hear that when you play the record on, like, a vinyl player, you know? You can hear that kind of warmth in the room, which I think we're all really pleased with.
I love that so much. I think it's really cool when bands especially can recreate that live feel, especially because you perform so much and just from the highlights you shared, it feels like some of your favorite memories come from the live performances. And so I think it's really cool how you took that approach while recording the album. That way, whenever you start like performing all these songs live, it will have the same feel as it was during the studio recordings.
Yeah, I think that was the whole idea of what we wanted to achieve, and we didn't work with a producer for this album. We thought it was important for, like, the 6 of us to just really get in a room together. Some of the songs weren't even finished yet, and just kind of work it out together how we wanted to go about, structure of songs and everything like that. And then, because 6 opinions is already a lot in a room. So I think it was really important for us to go through that stage. And the engineer, Mike, such a lovely, chilled out guy, and every now and again we'd ask, "What do you think, Mike?" And he'd just be like, "Yeah, sounds great. Another take." you know.
Awesome. So speaking of the songs, can you list them and the inspiration behind each?
Don't Turn the Lights On Yet is track 1, and it felt like it needed to be track 1 because the first line of it is start from the beginning. And it's a song we wrote when we were, snowed in Scotland on a tour. So yeah, that song's a fun one. Boy on the Train is a song that Cal wrote about your son.
Yeah. So when we went same tour in Scotland actually, so it's interesting that they both are next to each other. I thought it would be a good idea. My son was 6 months old at the time, and I suggested that my wife, who was on maternity leave at the time, and my son, um, actually I think he was 4 months anyway, come up and join us on tour. We were in for Newcastle, which is about a 5 hour train journey from Norwich to Newcastle. Um, for like come join us on tour, and then we'd kind of combine a sort of family holiday in Scotland with the tour dates, um, which was very. I don't know if I'd do it again, but it's something you can experience once, but it's a lot. Um, and but yeah, he it was I was so we were en route to Newcastle. We woke up early in the morning to get ready for the journey. This was the band. Me and I was with the drummer Ed in the band. Shout out to Ed again. We were just sharing a room together, and there was a little electric guitar. Kieran's Telecaster was nearby, and I just started jamming the riff quite early in the morning. And bless him, Ed kindly offered to record it through his sleepy haze. And the line "She's got the ticket and the boy on the train" just kind of came into my head from that. And at the time, I didn't know he was into trains as much as he is now. So it was kind of preemptive in that way. But he also knows it as Seth's song because my son's called Seth, and I hear it a lot now.
Yeah, and the next one's called "Feels Like Letting Go," um, which, yeah, is a song just about letting go of things, and focusing on the good, and it's a riff that Kieran, brought to the table. I think I remember us jamming it together when we first were allowed kind of to all play together again after the pandemic, and it was one of those riffs that I was like, "We need to write a song with this." So yeah, that finally made it onto an album. And then Edge of the Sun is the next one, which is a very kind of moody, more of a piano, uh, ballady kind of song really. Um, and Nikki wrote the lyrics with us on that one, and it's like heavily inspired by a podcast she was listening to at the time about like a prison break. And there was like a moment in the podcast where he's talking about the light, the edge of the sun, the light on the way out, and the kind of metaphors about it and stuff. So, yeah, that song's quite deep. Then it's halfway tonight.
Yeah, that was actually a song that was written. I wrote that during lockdown in the UK. Obviously, quite heavy lockdown we had. And me and my brother, when they finally started to ease the restrictions, me and my brother would often like meet at a pub, kind of in between us. And I think Kieran once sent me a message saying, "Yeah, let's meet halfway tonight." And I thought that was a really cool line. The song has nothing to do with our meeting. It ended up being a kind of a sort of a quite blunt, for me anyway, critique of, I guess, the journey of an artist, sort of struggling to be heard amongst all the noise, which I think a lot of musicians can relate to. But we'd kind of had some positive and negative experiences with the music industry, let's say, and it kind of it became a kind of tribute to what it's like to be a musician and trying to sort of be heard, but also resonate with others in your community. So yeah, hence the swimming against the radio sound is the kind of better write the right song or else we'll drown. It's pretty. It starts off pretty morbid, but I think it has quite a hopeful message actually at the end.
Yeah, it's definitely like a happy song to listen to as well, like music wise.
Yeah, I
Um,
quite like it when there's a happy sounding song with kind of slightly. It's like Hey Ya is a classic example, isn't it, by Outkast, where it's kind of actually a pretty devastating song, but it sounds so happy.
the next song on the track listing is "Kill the Silence," which is the title track of the album. Um, it wasn't going to intentionally be the title track, but we just got there somehow. I think we all just agreed on it. But it's it's actually a song that I had the riff of like 10 years ago when I was at uni, and I always loved the riff, and I really wanted to make it something. Just it's always kept with me. And then one day I was just kind of just feeling really sad about the environment, and Kill the Science came out in a night just in our little home studio here. And yeah, it's basically just kind of my little cry for awareness about the environment, and we're trying to kind of talk about it more with this album campaign, and kind of even though we're independent artists and can't do loads to shout about it in the music industry, at least we can do our little bit. And we're doing things like making our own merchandise with like through like upcycling t-shirts and printing them ourselves. So we're trying to do our little bit there. But anyway, that next song is called Devil's Canyon on the album.
And that's actually a song we've had a long time. That song originated uh, back when in the previous lineup of the band, actually, with a riff Kieran was playing, and the previous singer in the band, Eve, and myself, and George, who was collaborating with us a lot and produced a lot of our work. Um, he so the four of us were in a room, and it kind of basically it became this song, but it kind of got a bit forgotten about. And then not long after SJ, Nikki, and Ed joined the band, we kind of started jamming it, and we actually changed the key. We kind of sped it up a bit. It had a completely different vibe, and we thought it would probably make the first record or even the second record, but it actually didn't come out until the third record. And then we released it as one of the first tracks. So it's kind of, which I think some of our older fans maybe we felt thought we might be trolling them because it's kind of like here's our new song and it's probably one of our oldest songs. But it was really nice because it was the first song we recorded on this particular session, and I think some of us, I personally felt a little bit unsure about doing it just because I felt like, we had so many new songs I was excited to do. But actually hearing it back in the control room for the first time was a real kick because it felt like, we'd set this brief to make things raw and we wanted to try and be ourselves. And it felt like we could hear that in this song. And that was really refreshing.
Yeah, it was a good one to start off with because we were all very kind of confident with our parts and what we were
Mm.
doing, so it made the next song that little bit easier.
Mm.
The next song is called "Goddamn Time," which is, I think, a song about being a struggling musician.
There's a few songs that have that theme. Yeah, yeah. This was inspired by a songwriting round I put together, and yeah, it kind of went from there. And it was this song musically. It's quite cool because I wrote the part on the acoustic guitar originally, and then Matt did his version of it on the piano, and it had a totally different feel with the piano. It kind of got us all quite pumped, and so yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, the next one's "Surrender," which is probably the softest, song on the album. I love this one. Um, we actually recorded the the dual vocal part on this, together at the same time, didn't we? Like,
Mm.
live. So yeah, we hadn't done that before, that was cool. Yeah, that's my probably one of my favorites on the album. And then there's, "All the Signs Are There,"
Yeah, which
which
is
is an older one.
yeah, that's a nice kind of a song that yeah, it's been around for a few years, but we hadn't quite found the kind of yeah, the form of it. I mean, I just thought all the signs are there was a really interesting idea for a song, like a concept. And it's also the keyboard player Matt. He really likes the fact that it doesn't ever play the root chord for any of the listeners out there. It never resolves the chord sequence. It just plays the sort of I'm not. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, my musical knowledge is somewhat limited. I didn't know. I often will me. I'll bring like a song idea to the band, and Matt will be comment because he's a grade 8 pianist. He'll be like, "Oh yes, you've done a bloody blah bloody blah blah." So yeah, that was one of those,
Oh, blah blah blah.
and I'll go, "Yes."
The penultimate song is called "I Feel the Rain," which is like our rockiest song to date that was heavily inspired by, when we supported a band called Skunk Anansie, who are, again, a band that have been around for many, many years now. And we found, just watching them live and, gigging with them just very inspiring because 'cause they're just so much power and energy on stage. So, yeah, this song was kind of born from that. And then it ends with "We Sing."
Yeah, which we actually weren't going to record, or we hadn't. It was one of the backup ones, but we decided to record it right at the end, and it's quite an emotional song for us in a way because it's a tribute to playing live, and but we did one of our first tours together, like proper national tours, was with a band called CC Smugglers, who it was sadly was ended up being their farewell tour, but I had a conversation with the guitarist backstage, and he basically he said, they're about to play a sold out gig. It was going to be huge. We couldn't believe how lucky we were to be on this bill, and we just had this quite sad conversation about the fact that he was talking about all the friends' weddings he'd missed, and all the kind of those moments in life, the holidays that didn't go on. I mean, it sounds like, but particularly like the stuff experiences that he just had missed out on by doing life on the road as a musician. And then they went out and did an absolute blinder of a show, and you wouldn't have known about this conversation we'd had just moments before he went on stage, and it really kind of affected me. And then I got home and listened to the Loadout by Jackson Brown, which is another tribute to musicians. I don't know if you know that song, but and it just really connected, and this song came out from that. But yeah, that's kind of the idea that it is a choice you make to be a musician, to be a writer, and as wonderful and as lucky as it is that we get to do this, you know, there are sacrifices that it takes, and they can be painful sometimes.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on this wonderful project, and I cannot wait for it to be out.
Oh, thanks,
Thank you
Demi.
so
Yeah,
much.
we're excited as well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, just to wrap up, from each of you, can you share a quick piece of advice for songwriters?
Keep writing and don't lose faith, even if you're stuck on just half a song idea. If you love what it's sounding like and where it's going, don't give up on it. Keep going. Collaborate with different people. Be open to ideas from others, and yeah, just don't give up on yourself.
And that's really lovely. All I would add to that is that with this be open idea that SJ said, like, is that's so important, and also being open to your own ideas and not assume that you have to try really hard to come up with like the right moment. Like often I think the best lines in songs can surprise us, you know. I think John Lennon once told a fan who was shocked by how do you write these songs? And he said, I'm just mucking around with words. And in a way, that's what we're all doing as writers. And
Perfect. Well, thank you both so much. It was a delight having you on the show. Can you please share with everybody where they can connect with you online and check out your music?
Yeah, thanks, Demi. Yeah, if you head to morganway.co.uk, you can find us on all socials, see where we're playing, etc. So yeah, please do give us a follow on social media, and we hope to meet you.
Yeah, well, thank you both again for joining me.
Demi, can I just ask what would be your response to that lovely question about what advice you would give?
Oh my goodness. My go-to is always authenticity. I think that it's really important to always be yourself and do what's authentic to you. So mine is authenticity always.
Yeah,
Nice.
fan
Yeah,
of
I
that.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was a total delight having both of you on the show. Thank you again for joining me.
Thank
Yeah,
you so
thanks so
much.
much. Thanks,
Yeah, you're
Demi.
welcome. And listeners, that is a wrap on this chat with SJ and Callum. And of course, until next time, stay
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 right on
right
right
on
track.
on
track.
track.